I'm Kora, and welcome to MediaWhorz. Today we will be reviewing Constantine, a movie based loosely on the character created in 1985 by Alan Moore, and starring Keanu Reeves in the title role. So let's see if this movie can maintain the balance between good and bad while I throw this to the round table. So, our main character is John Constantine. It's a nitpicky complaint, but the film pronounces it incorrectly. I'll get to that later. So, what's the comic about?
A morally ambiguous confidence man who smokes, has lung cancer, and is tormented by the spirits of the undead.
In this film, he's combating half-demons. The reason he deals with half-angels and half-demons as opposed to regular angels and regular demons is, as specifically stated in this movie, angels and demons cannot cross into our plane of existence.
However, they tend to break that rule quite often.
Well, a lot of the mythos is kept confusing and vague.
Reeves gets contacted by an LAPD officer at his house because her twin sister committed suicide, and she thinks there's more to it.
One of the most annoying things in this film is that, in the theatrical release, they cut out some of the lead-up to her meeting him.
Yeah, it was strange because there were deleted scenes that actually explained some aspects of the movie better. I mean, they're not going to get any points for that because
it was deleted!
The officer is Angela Dobson, played by Rachel Weisz. They cut a scene where she researches him on her computer, and then all of a sudden her phones begin to ring. The only part they kept was where the phones rang because apparently they thought that was cool and creepy.
The film doesn't shy away from ripping off a lot of stereotypical creepy moments. Hell, they started by ripping off The Exorcist.
I guess they wanted to establish him as being a pro, or something to that effect. Still, we know what the real cause of that possession was.
They do show the sister conveyed Constantine's name to Angela, though.
True. There was a scene where Angela is watching the recording of her sister committing suicide, and the sister whispers, "John Constantine." But when Angela rewatches it, the scene of her whispering has disappeared.
That was actually pretty cool.
Anyway, the next thing we know, Angela is knocking on John's door. They team up, and John gives the most bare-bones, Spark Notes-style summary of the film's premise.
What if I told you that God and the devil made a wager? A kind of standing bet for the souls of all mankind.
I tell you to stay on your meds.
Humor me. No direct contact with humans. That would be the rule. Just influence. See who would win.
I thought angels were supposed to be guardians. Fluffy wings, halos. You know, Michael Landon. Not dicks.
I had a big fucking problem with that. But do you remember when Angela went to Constantine and asked him if he knew what her sister's suicide meant?
My sister was a devout Catholic. To understand what that means if she'd taken her own life...
Her soul would go straight to hell, where she'd be ripped apart over and over in screaming, brutal agony for all eternity. That it? That about right?
I really liked the way he delivered that line.
Still, there was never a part in this movie where I even slightly liked him.
Well, he still had a couple of really awesome asshole moments.
In any case, John visits hell via her cat and confirms that the sister is in hell. Don't ask me to explain that.
Cats are normally seen as creatures that are attuned with the occult. That's where they're probably drawing from. I still don't understand why he stuck his feet in a bucket of water. But the cat I can somewhat understand.
This still makes me wonder if I'm sitting on my porch with my feet in a puddle and I go like, "Here's you, baby. Here's you, baby, did you?" Oh, fuck!
The only thing about that scene that made any sense was that he used an ampoule of water from the River Jordan to get out of hell.
I had no idea what the hell that was.
They showed that when he was purchasing the dragon's breath.
They completely distracted me with...
Easy there, hero. It's dragon's breath. Thought you couldn't get it anymore. Yeah, well, I know a guy who knows a guy.
But apparently, cats are the dumbwaiters to hell. Still, they discovered by reading Hell's Bible that the son of the devil, Mammon, requires a powerful psychic in order to be incarnated into this world. This is an element that perplexes me. In Christian mythology, Mammon is not the son of the devil, he is the embodiment of greed and one of the 7 princes of hell, along with Lucifer.
After he returns from hell, didn't they reference one of the really cool things from the comics, the consuming bugs?
Yeah, and a number of Constantine's friends end up getting killed off.
In fairly ironic ways.
It didn't have much impact with me for the most part, though they do show that half-angels do interact with the world around them. They don't just provide guidance. They also work as convenience store clerks.
Devil on aisle 666. We have a devil on aisle 666.
The film then reveals that Angela is a powerful psychic, like her sister.
She repressed her power, and honestly, that's completely understandable. They're twin sisters, and
One took one path, one took the other.
how she got her powers back is weird. John drowns her.
It's survival response. Get her to the point of death, and then pull her back.
Well, he didn't pull her back. He got her to the point of death, and then she blew up the tub.
What part of powerful psychic did you not understand?
The part where she's apparently telekinetic. She let out some kind of weird shockwave, the bathtub explodes, and she's covered in steam.
She was covered in steam?
Well, honestly, there was no cat there in that scene, so obviously it wasn't going to make any sense.
Anyway, John then loses her in the dumbest way possible. He specifically gives her an amulet to protect her from demonic forces.
How the fuck did that fall off?
I know! She took the jacket off, and apparently it somehow got removed as well.
That was my main issue with this whole damn movie.
It had a plot class. As soon as the plot demanded it, it falls off.
Here's what I would do. The priest who was killed earlier actually failed to use the amulet to protect himself, due to stupidity. They should have made it so that Balthazar had corrupted the chain so that it couldn't keep itself closed. That way, both of these scenes would have made sense, and there wouldn't be any plot holes there.
That would actually work.
In order to try and locate Angela, who's been abducted, Constantine goes to Midnight's club where half-breeds tend to meet.
Papa Midnight was a major badass in this movie. I actually liked him.
What did he do other than electrocute Oh, wait, never mind, that's enough.
He gets into an electric chair, has water poured over his feet, and gets electricity run through his body, as you do. This allows him to astral project. I've come up with a way to explain it, but this movie certainly doesn't provide one.
Kora, most of the problems in this movie could have been fixed if they had bothered to explain anything.
Monologue! Use an inner monologue to explain things.
That would have been quite useful. It could have made him relatable as well.
Couldn't he have just scryed her location?
Or divined it. The point is, Mammon has possessed a man that has found the Spear of Destiny, the Lance of Longinus, whatever you want to call it, and is needed to bring Mammon into the world.
So anyway, Constantine and Chaz... Actually, we haven't mentioned Chaz yet. He's,
Apprentice?
Chaz is essentially the whiny little taxi driver that follows around John Constantine. He and John head over to the hospital where the cop's been taken, and they bless the water in the sprinkler system in order to weaken the half-breeds that have gathered inside.
I actually really like how they do that.
Understandable. I do not like John having a cross shotgun with golden bullets.
Why waste that much money on bullets? There is actually a far simpler way to do this. Get a priest, cut crosses into the tips, and have him bless them.
The thing I didn't like about that was, it didn't feel like the same movie at that point. It's an action scene in what felt like an exorcism film. Then again, he'd already pulled out the damn brass knuckles.
Anyway, after that, they go and start to exorcise Mammon from Angela.
That was actually kind of creepy, watching him try to come out. I think I've seen that elsewhere, but it was creepy, and I will give them credit for that. They succeed in suppressing it, then Chaz eats concrete and dies, but that had no relevance because I never cared. In order to figure out who killed Chaz, John Constantine does the anti-demonic chicken dance.
Into the light I command thee. Into the light I command thee.
Actually, I kind of like the whole, I'm gonna summon the motherfucker behind all this scene.
It reveals that the individual who apparently killed Chaz, the one who's been supporting Mammon's rebirth, is apparently Gabriel, played by Tilda Swinton.
You're probably wondering what the hell's going on.
She only appeared in one scene prior to this. The fact that she was the villain was annoying because they hadn't done anything to foreshadow this. Now, the actor's choice was good, but she was just... her reasons for being a villain made no sense.
I will argue for her reasons, but we aren't given any of them until after she shows how evil she is.
I had no problem with Gabriel turning out to be the villain, because God's right-hand man, Satan, organized 1/3 of heaven against the Creator, launched a rebellion, and was then forced out of heaven because of this. Anyway, Gabriel blows John's ass out of the room.
Now that he's realized he can't fight back against Gabriel, he does possibly the most intelligent, badass thing he could ever possibly do. He slits his wrists.
Before we get into that, the reason John Constantine was damned to hell in this movie is because he attempted suicide and therefore his soul is damned. He's been trying to save people in order to save his soul. So he slits his wrists, allows himself to bleed out, and that's when he's visited by the devil, who is played by Peter Stormare, who, I will admit, is easily the best thing in this film.
He has not been this scary since he was in Fargo.
If he had used the phrase, "I want pancakes," I would have given this film an extra point.
His performance actually almost raised the movie for me, and then they fucked up.
He summons the devil, and Stormare had some pretty good dialogue there.
Busy. Need a vacation.
Word is that kid of yours is a chip off the old block.
Well, one does what one can.
Then Lucy goes and sees Gabriel attempting to resurrect Mammon, and prevents it from happening. Gabriel then tries to smite the devil.
That is one ballsy half-breed, by the way.
And the devil strips her of her wings. He then returns to Constantine, and Constantine asks for one final thing, which is to have Angela's sister released from hell.
Fine. It's done.
He then begins to drag Constantine away.
As he's dragging him away, the floor starts fighting him. It starts to pull up with him. It is so freaking awesome what happens next. That is truly John Constantine. Because of his sacrifice, he starts to go to heaven, and he flips the devil off. Yes, that's right, kids. You can go to heaven while flipping someone off.
But rather than allow him to go to heaven, the devil reaches into his chest, yanks out the carcinomas and tar. Wait a minute. The devil saved the girl from hell, cured Constantine, saved the whole freaking world. Are we sure this is a DC Comics devil?
He's like, come on, keep committing suicide and sacrificing yourself. You'll get it wrong one day.
But yeah, it ends up all's well that ends well, except the post-credits scene. It's revealed that Chaz apparently becomes a half-breed angel, which raises a number of questions about the mythos, which is already ridiculously confusing. In order to do it properly, they need to make the internal logic easy for the viewer to understand. They failed miserably in that regard.
There is nothing wrong with leaving the viewer with a few questions, but they had excellent opportunities to explain things. Not only does Constantine's mastery of snark make him the ideal subject for an inner monologue, but you also have two potential audience proxies in the form of Angela and Chaz. But they never use them.
I'm actually annoyed by the number of callbacks they make to the comic. They're simply there to look cool, and without the context, they just add to the confusion. I want to briefly approach the subject of my fanboy rage. John Constantine has expressly stated that he doesn't work for heaven or hell. He does not like God. He feels that God is like every other authority figure that he's ever had to deal with. He's also a blonde Brit who has little to no fighting skills. He gets by with wit and trickery, as well as the help of his numerous friends. Sure, his friends all have roughly the same mortality rate as suicide bombers, but the point still stands. The reason he's banished to hell is due to his responsibility for the death and subsequent damnation of a little girl. Finally, he has very few supernatural powers, and most of them can be attributed to the fact that he has demonic blood in his veins.
Let's finish this up.
This movie epitomizes many of the problems that are faced with the translation of lesser-known heroes. This is actually a rare occasion where I'm the most knowledgeable of everyone in the group regarding a comic. But, ultimately, I just don't think this film is that good. Ignoring my views on the comic, The effects are still mediocre, it steals from a number of classic horror movies, and it fails to do anything creative or inventive. The most I can say is that you should check out the scene at the end with Peter Stormare, but all in all, there are people in this movie that should be ashamed, so it's a you should be ashamed for me. That's 4 out of 10.
I haven't read that much Hellblazer yet, so my biggest problem was the characters themselves. Keanu Reeves' performance was so dry and wooden that it felt like he was just fodder for Satan's fire. Rachel Weisz's character started off as a street-smart cop who seemed like she would want to read up on stuff. She doesn't believe in hell and demons, but when she finds out that they're real, she no longer gives a fuck what she needs to know to survive. She just follows Constantine around until the final act. That scene with the devil was good, but the rest of the characters weren't developed and the story never made much sense. The mythos was impossible to follow, and the effects were okay, but again, they didn't really add anything to this film. It's watchable, but I can't really recommend it, so it's a meh. That's 5 out of 10.
So it's my turn. I've read some of Hellblazer. I know a good bit about the character because I've seen him in other things. Yeah, fuck Keanu Reeves. He did not belong in this film. He's been good in other films, not this one. As a matter of fact, fuck most of the cast because they were poorly cast, or poorly written, or just poor to begin with. The effects weren't horrible, but they weren't great. Yes, the demons look fake, but it wasn't to the point where I had a problem with it. I had a problem with everything else. The scripting, the acting, and the antagonist. There was no lead up to Gabriel being the antagonist. I just liked this film before I ever heard of Hellblazer. I'm going to give this movie a you should be ashamed because I feel like those in charge should feel shame. It just fails, in my opinion. So, 4 out of 10. They should be ashamed.
I like this movie. I found it creative. However, I can see that there are certain issues with it. For example, they let certain things occur solely to aid the plot, such as the chain falling off. However, I like the majority of this movie. I found that the mythos and the storyline drew me in. It still makes me enthusiastic to watch this movie to this day. There were some nice badass moments in Keanu's performance, and I like Papa Midnight. I could have done without Shia LaBeouf. This movie has its flaws, however I think it more than makes up for it, with its good storyline and creativity with its mythos. So because of that, I will say that I'm willing to buy this movie in a bargain bin. That's 7 out of 10.
With 2 You Should Be Ashamed ratings, 1 meh, and 1 bargain bin, the averaged MediaWhorz rating is meh. So, see you in hell.
That's all I ever heard. Half-breed, how I love to hate the world. Half-breed, she's no good, they won. Both sides were